Perfect. Great. Well, thank you everyone for joining. My name is Araminta. I run a content marketing agency, and along with Annie, we manage the FinTech Marketing Slack group. And today we're really privileged to have Richard Cook on, social media manager from Monzo. Welcome, Richard. Good to have you here.
Hi, great to be here. Hey everyone, how's it going?
Super excited for this event. I know a lot of people in our group have said that they're interested, they're going to have questions, and they just want to know how probably one of the best fintech social media accounts do their social media. So I'm very excited for this event. A bit of prep. How the event will go is the first 30 minutes. Richard and I will just be chatting about Monzo, how they approach to social media, what defines a good tweet, a good Instagram post, all that stuff. And then afterwards, we'll be doing a Q&A. So throughout the event, feel free to post questions in the chat and we'll get to them in about half an hour. And you'll also receive the recording afterwards. So don't fret if you want to go back to something. So let's just start from the beginning. Richard, I know Monzo needs probably no introduction, but just in case and for the sake of being comprehensive, can you give us a bit of a background on yourself and of course, Monzo?
Cool. So I'll start with Monzo. Monzo is a UK-based bank. We've been going for about 7 years now, and we have over 6 million customers here in the UK. We offer both current account and business accounts, as well as a whole range of typical banking products, from loans to overdrafts to we're rolling out a new sort of pay later type of product called Monzo Flex. Very exciting. And my role there is as a social media manager. So I'm kind of looking after what is going out on our channels every day, covering Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok as of late, mostly on the organic side. So I'm not in charge of any of our paid ads or anything like that. I don't have to worry about acquisitions or anything like that. I'm sort of more focused on getting our messages out there to as many people as possible and engaging the audiences we have and finding new channels, that kind of thing. But I work very closely with our paid team to make sure we're giving them good content to work with. They might take something we do on organic and turn it into an ad. I'm currently, if you go on TikTok, you might see me. There's an ad that we're running on there, which is me explaining how to do a say it spending challenge, which was originally an ad I filmed just randomly one day to go on TikTok, and is now got 10 million views through paid. Wow, which is quite a sort of micro celebrity in that regard. My background is I was originally I started my career over in Spotify, the music streaming folks, where I started off in customer service, just doing basic email support. Then I got into social back when social customer support was becoming a thing. They were it looks like people are asking us questions through Twitter, etc. And we kind of started the Spotify Cares Twitter account. And that's how I got my first taste of social media and what engagement looks like and how to have fun with people on social media. And we kept building on that. And I moved on to the more of the social marketing team, helped build that out and worked across the global accounts there on the creative side. And then after about 6 years there, I sort of jumped ship to Monzo. I've been using Monzo for about a year or two, that weird pink card I'd seen people using. All my tech savvy friends you got to get this thing. And I just love the brand. I love the product. I was using it every day, and I was I've got to get involved with this. So I joined Monzo as a community manager to begin with, looking after kind of online community. So that covered both social media and also our forum and weird bits and bobs our shop and online reviews and other things. As well as supporting events and things like that. And then eventually I sort of took my focus just onto social media, because doubling down on that. And for about the last 3 or so years, I've been focusing on our social media, helping develop the strategy for that, the channels, and helping to, we've thankfully it's not just me these days. We've grown out the team, so we now have a content creator and social media designer as well. So helping to kind of oversee that, say what we should be doing next, or what we should stop doing, or keeping an eye on the industry as a whole to make sure we're ahead of the curve, or I don't mean curve as in the payment card. I mean ahead of the curve in terms of social media marketing.
Yeah,
so that's me.
Curve is another interesting company. Yeah, and so from what that's amazing that you've got a team, right? So you said you have two other people on your team, so it's a social media team of three. And I remember you telling me that you don't do like the replies, right? You just do the posting because you'd say that's a
Okay.
completely different skill.
Yeah,
Like,
it's an interesting question. It's like, is like that kind of community management aspect, is that a marketing function or is it like a customer service function? And I guess it depends on what your product is. I think when you're like a bank or financial service, it makes sense for it to be a customer support function. And the reason I think that is because, there's so much like technical knowledge you need to have in order to support people on social for their banking needs. Like I've tried to do social support or even to support like frontline before, and like I wouldn't know where to start. If someone comes to me and is like, I'm struggling to do this with my account, yeah, I'm not trained or qualified really to like help with that. So like that feels like a very different job to us being like, engaging with a fun meme we've seen or something like that. So we kind of keep those two somewhat separate in order to have like a well-trained, scalable force that can deal with social support queries in an expert way, whilst we sort of focus on like that great engaging content from like the marketing side. I know other companies do it differently, and like they treat like that community management as a marketing thing, but because like there is that kind of need for the expertise, we have it as a cops function. So yeah, I don't have to do the replies myself. I just like there's a bad way to put it, but I kind of like create the mess or noise, and I will help with clearing it up. But for the most part, I don't have to worry about it.
I think that's a pretty important distinction, though. Content creation and kind of engagement, and then customer service. You really do need two different people to do those jobs. And I think maybe too many people think that, social media does just one job and you have to deal with the whole thing. But actually, there's customer service aspect and then there's engagement aspect. And that probably won't happen at the beginning, right? That would only happen maybe later on once you've reached a certain size. What size did you need two people? Do you know? Because I think you joined afterwards, so maybe not. You won't know, but
so is your question like when did we split out the customer service from sort of community management kind of thing?
Yeah.
Before my time, I joined just as we had started to have there was already a social team that did the sport, but they were also like doing like phone support at the same time. It was still quite early on. But I think definitely in the first like 2-3 years of Monzo, like our community manager at the time, what he was doing was like both the tweets like proactively, but also doing reactive. I think like when you're very, very small, scaling up, and both your customer support team but also marketing team are very small, there's like everyone's kind of doing everything, right? Yep. I can't say where the line is. I think it's just like where it becomes where it fails to scale, right? Where you reach a point where you have to worry about like coverage and rotas, and it becomes much more operational, as opposed to just like something you just do in between your marketing. Like you can't, like we're now at a stage now is like I can't just like do some marketing and then like set an hour aside to like look at the replies. It's constant. It's coming in all the time.
Yeah.
2 hours a day and like all channels. So like we have like we have to, again, like there's things like do we have enough cover? Like we know this is coming up. We know that this has happened. Can we move people onto social? Again, those are like operational questions, which like I as a marketer am not best placed to answer. So again, like once it becomes, I keep saying this, operational, it makes sense for like people who are dedicated to that like task full time to really own it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think that's a good kind of definition.
But what I would add is like I work very closely with that team, so I let them know our plans. Like they have visibility on like our content calendar, and they'll come to me and they'll be like, "Oh, it looks like you're going to do something that's going to like make a lot of noise. What would you like us to do with it?" So like what one source of content we do quite a lot on social is like conversation starters, like what's the most random thing you've ever bought, or if your bank account could talk, what would it say, or if you could change one thing about Monzo, what would you do? Like those kind of open-ended conversation starters, which are really good for driving conversation, but like could accidentally create 500 inbound cases for our cops. So like I'll give them a heads up, make sure they like know what to do. Might even give them some direction and be like, hey, be fun with these, or like, hey, don't worry about these too much. Like you can just sort of close them as they come in, but let us know if you see any spicy ones, that kind of thing. So I work closely with them, and I also like give them the kind of direction is the wrong word, but like here's how like I think we should be doing social in general, because I did social customer service for like so long. I know like kind of like what good looks like and what what a good response looks like when to take stuff to DM. Like I can kind of set some, I guess, like policies that I think we should have. Like as a general principle, we should like try and solve stuff as quickly as possible, or take things to DM where this is the case, or once you've helped a customer, try and like give them a moment of delight or something. Whether that's a GIF or like a fun little random act of kindness in some way. Can we get a budget to like send customers gifts? If someone says it's their birthday or their wedding or something, can we do something for them? So that's the kind of thing I will push for. Whereas I can't tell them how to solve a pin reset request or something, but I can help them with like, how do we like give customers joy on social?
Yeah, I think this plays well into my next question, which I think is the one everyone really wants to ask, which is one of the main issues with fintech and financial services is that they're overly formal, especially they can't really nail the tone of voice. They talk corporate. And in fintech, we're trying to be more relatable and to talk to people like you normally would. And I know that you've told me that you had to really work on that. You really had to convince the team to see that, to understand that approach. So I'd love to hear like how do you think of social media at Monzo, and how do you convince the team to take the approach that you currently have?
Yeah, so I guess the full story there is that like when I joined, I guess our social strategy was kind of just like for announcements. Like we have social and it's like a broadcast platform, right? We have these channels which we see as like sitting alongside, say, our email or in-app channels or traditional marketing channels. And so the kind of content we would put up would be like, hey, we've launched a thing, or here is a blog post about how we built our backend service or something like that. It was kind of just like taking content we had elsewhere and putting it up. It wasn't really a kind of a social first strategy. And then that makes sense at the time. Like this was back when marketing was like 4 people. Everyone was like swamped all the time. Didn't have time to create like social first content. And there was no strategy in place to like even justify why you do that. The strategy was like, just, use these to distribute information to people as we grow. Make sure like people know what's going on with Monzo. We want, like, there's always been this element of transparency as part of like the culture and the branding. So like, let's live that transparency through these channels, let the world know what Monzo's up to. That was kind of like, if there was a strategy, that was basically it. And I think like when I joined, I sort of took that over and I was like, okay, this is great. Like, let's try and do some more. Let's try and tweet, I don't know, more than once a week, or, let's try and put some stuff up on Instagram. Let's try and like build out these channels to be more than distribution platforms, but areas that we can like really grow an audience, I think, and like live the brand a bit more than just showing like showing the product announcements. Because like that is great. And like some of our best performing content will just be like the cool stuff that product teams have built. But like, I think there was a gap there to be like, yeah, but what can we like do just for social sake? Like, what can we do that is like social first, social specific, that is just like basically only for brand love, or only to like make lots of noise about Monzo. So we started like it being a bit more experimental. And I think that's like the bit where like the uncertainty comes in, or like when you say to someone, yeah, I want to post like I want to do a meme, or like this is trending, I want to like jump off the back of it or something. And like you haven't been doing that for like the 2 years previous, it's very hard, because it can seem very jarring, both as an external follower of that account, but also as like an internal stakeholder. It's like, wait a sec, why is like Monzo like cracking jokes suddenly? Like that's a hard barrier to pass, right? It's a weird psychological break. So there was like like the first few times we did it was like people would message me and be like, why did we tweet this? And like I had to sort of explain, it's like, well, we're trying to take this new approach where we're like an engagement-led approach, where like we do fun stuff that people like and share, and our metrics are this and this, but it's expect to see more of this in the future. And so yeah, I think once we were able to articulate like the benefit it brought, like, hey, we did we used that trending GIF of whatever, Paul Rudd or whatever, and it got 300,000 impressions on Twitter. That is a good thing. Like, here's the awareness is a good thing. Like that's why this matters. And I can set goals for this, and like you can see graphs going up, like basically making the argument using like the language of marketing, like why this matters, why it's important. People go, oh, okay, there is like methods to this madness. And like, I'll admit, sometimes it does look mad. Sometimes it like, if you look at our TikTok and we're posting like videos of a dancing stuffed toy that looks like our bank card, if you're sort of naively coming to that, you'd be like, well, what? Fairly, I think you could fairly challenge like what we're doing there. But then when I say, yeah, but like that got like 3 million views with no spend, like you would pay so much for like that kind of like reach through paid. I think once you're able to like show results and like essentially justify the being silly in a way that like we've never done it in a way that would like compromise the brand as well. I'm like the most brand safe person ever. I think, if anything, I am like too risk averse. I often get feedback that like I'm kind of like critical of ideas in the sense that I worry too much about like how it will go down. I think, I've purposely turned down opportunities where I think we could get involved because like, it feels not Monzo enough, or it feels like would be like too spicy, too I keep saying spicy, too icky, like we shouldn't get involved in this. It feels we could upset some people if we did that. So I've always kept it very brand safe, but we've like slowly walked towards a place where we're more comfortable like taking risks, having fun, doing like weird stuff, and like it does take time to get there. You can't just like be corporate for like 2 years, or even not corporate. You can't even just be like, we're going to use this as a pure broadcast platform for like blog content or whatever, and then like pivot to suddenly doing the latest TikTok dance challenge. I wouldn't recommend ever doing that. I think it has to be a kind of gradual. You introduce this, and like if you look at our Instagram, like slowly bringing in like more and more fun stuff until like you've transformed your feed into something totally different, which is like this powerhouse or whatever of engaging content. So yeah, that's kind of the story of like how we got there. It was a journey, and like, this is over the course of years, months and years, slowly like testing like different formats and seeing how they go, and like looking at the results and being like, this is working, this isn't working. Sometimes crossing the line over the brand safe area and being like, okay, well, we got burnt, let's never do that again. Because social is a kind of, I don't know, it's a test and learn environment. It's everything you do, you're doing live, but you get instant feedback, so you know how it's done. And like, if you're smart about it, you can sort of, stop doing what doesn't work and keep doing what does. And like that's kind of led us to what we do today.
Yeah. There's a few takeaways there. I think what's key here is that you didn't start doing social media the way you're doing it right now. You started from a very different place, and maybe, I don't know if you were formal, but you were definitely risk averse at the beginning. Monzo, I mean, as a brand on social media, and eventually you evolved. So it is a learning experience. And so if you just start a brand today, it's okay to kind of make mistakes and start on the wrong foot and kind of like figure it out as you go. It's okay to do that. Monzo did that. So if Monzo did it, like it's okay, it's normal. Don't worry about it too much.
It's so interesting. I think one thing I learned moving from like a music company to a banking company was like how important risk is. It's probably like the most important word in banking is risk. It applies to literally everything you do, from like your conduct as employees, like who you lend to, your like decisions you make, move like big business decisions. And it very much applies to marketing. We're all familiar with like financial promotions and the rules that come with that. I had to very quickly learn all about the joys of financial promotions. And it does feel like, if we screw up, we like, there's like the reputational risk that can come with a bank getting it wrong feels greater than with, Oatly getting it wrong or Innocent getting it wrong. There's like, that's, I feel that very heavily. I feel like eyes are on us. And if we screw up, a brand that is holding your life savings feels a little bit more like there's something at stake there. So I'm very aware of that. But at the same time, like I see failure on social as not necessarily, I guess there's different types of failure. The good kind of failure is like a tweet that doesn't do very well. And like, that's really cool because cool, never do that again. When Instagram, like we have a hot idea for a new Instagram format. Like yesterday, I was like, let's use the add yours sticker on Instagram and get people to like add like a random purchase around their house. Everyone's got one. It's going to go viral. It's great. And we got like 3 people did it. I was like, cool. Let's never do that again. Let's just forget that ever happened. And like that's a good kind of failure. It fits into like test and learn model because you can just like scrap ideas that don't work and keep doing the good stuff and test something else. The bad kind of failure is like, yeah, when you like upset people or do something that is like goes against your brand values. Like I think we're quite good at not even like we very rarely experience that kind of failure, because we would stop an idea. There's enough eyes on us on stuff we do, that's like not an issue. I would stop it.
Yeah, for sure. No, and I appreciate you like saying when you get it wrong. Like it just proves that even when you're at the scale that you are, you can still get some things wrong. I'd love to move on to kind of day to day today, what Monzo is doing in social media. And I think this is also what people are very interested in. You've already mentioned a bit, you're doing 4 different platforms, and I'm guessing you've got a different kind of strategy on each one, and you're doing different things on each one. There's 2 questions here, but I'll start with what does the process look like in terms of coming up with ideas? Is it very like process oriented, or is it much more the creative side where you just come up with an idea? What does that look like?
It's like it's a mix of both. I think I'm like a creative, how does it go, like creative and like a mix of data and creativity, right? So we are quite like scientific in the way that we think about content. Like we have an overall strategy, which is like, here's our content pillars, blah, 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 here's our channels, here's our channel strategy. Like that all exists. And that is like the framework upon which we will plan ideas. And then we have like a very, planned out, what do you call it, like cadence for planning content. So once a month we'll get together and we'll be like, cool, next month is May, what's coming up? And we'll look at like both the cultural calendar, so like what holidays are coming up, what events, like what is like relevant going on in the world that might be worth talking about in our marketing on social, and also like from a product side, what campaigns are going on, what's rolling out, etc., etc. And then we kind of marry those two, try and determine like what that means in terms of like, what does May look like for us? So okay, maybe it's like a mix of like us talking about, I don't know, a good example would be like February. It's like, okay, well, what you got in February? You've got like Valentine's Day. I think Mother's Day is in February as well. So there's a lot in there about like relationships and stuff. And so like that is like, okay, let's talk about relationships in that month. Or maybe in January is an even better example, because that's like the big month that everyone has savings on their mind. So it's like, okay, well, like maybe in January, let's think about savings. So we'll sit down and like we'll think about all our like ongoing content formats we have. It's like, okay, well, maybe we can do a Twitter thread about how to use Monzo to save, or how to use Monzo on bank holiday. Maybe we can do a, what other formats do we have? The TikTok plushy thing about this, or, like try and like mix and match a little bit, be like, okay, formats we know work well, topics that we think will be relevant, and like kind of use that as an engine to generate ideas. And then out of that process, we'll have like a big list of ideas, plan them all out. And then, then you just get stuck into like the machine that churns out the content. Like every day we have a little stand-up, sort of see what's going out that day, make sure like everything has an owner, everything has like a little approval process. Anything that needs like FinProm approval or financial promotion approval goes to that process as well on top. So yeah, it becomes a bit more of like a kind of like operational thing where it's just like, okay, cool, the machine is working, our designer is like hard at work doing this, we know what's going out. So that's kind of how it works. And then like as we go, we'll look back, I very closely look at the data and be like, cool, that worked really well. Every week we'll have like a little meeting where we sort of look back at the previous week's content and go, cool, top performing content was this, let's do more of that. This content didn't do so well, that's weird, why? And like try and like dissect it a little bit, be like, that's worked well before but didn't work well this time, why is that? Is it the format, is it the timing, is it the the topic, is it whatever? And try and like really diagnose things and give things a good go before we like cut them. But yeah, always be questioning like something, and like we can do something for like a year and it works really well, and then we'll decide that's run its course, and like phase that out, bring something new in. And we'll do that like both for like content formats, but channels, platforms, all kinds of stuff goes through that kind of like planning, test and learn, experiment approach.
And across these 5 different platforms that you're on, is there like what does success mean in I don't know if it's per platform or for social media in general, but yeah, in general, I guess what does success mean when you're doing a tweet or an Instagram post or a Facebook post or TikTok?
I keep it pretty simple because I'm just focused on the organic side. I'm not too concerned about like conversions and stuff. But it is good. Like we share our best performing content with our paid team, who will then like take it and run it as ads and things like that. And like there's like an interesting. We see that like our best, like our most engaging content tends to be also our best like converting content, which makes some kind of sense.
Yeah,
but
of course.
It's interesting. But in terms of like what success looks like for me, it's pretty much just like a reach play, honestly.
Really?
Like whatever reaches the most people. And like that is, I think there's more to that than it sounds like. It's not just like how far can stuff go, because we know for a fact that like the more engagement something gets, the more reach it gets. Like we're operating in like a world of algorithms, right? And so like by its very nature, if you make content people love, it will go further. And by optimizing for reach, I guess what I'm really saying is optimizing for a whole bunch of other stuff, like comments, likes, shares, etc. But rather than focusing on like one of those metrics, I sort of, would judge a post based on like how many people saw it. So like, if they're like 500,000 people saw a post, I'd be like, that's great. Whereas like this post got like 50,000 views. That's good. And so I kind of applied that for each platforms, like Twitter impressions, TikTok, like views is the main one. It's like on TikTok, things like followers doesn't even matter, it seems, because the way like the For You page and stuff works. Like who cares about followers on TikTok? Whereas like if I can do a TikTok that gets like 3 million impressions for no budget, that's like a big win.
Incredible.
So yeah, we'll set goals more around like just like pure reach, honestly.
On the subject of TikTok, you've been experimenting. I'd love to hear what you've been doing on TikTok, the plushie, and yeah, kind of it's such a new platform that I think a lot of people are still figuring it out. And obviously you've got some big wins from it. So what are some wins and some kind of mistakes or failures that you've had on TikTok?
Yeah, it's been a real journey. I think like it was literally about a year to the date that we started kicking off. Like we set a goal for H1 last year where we were like, we want to get on that channel and experiment and figure out. And experimenting on that channel initially meant like me like in my bedroom, like I was like filming like the Monzo card like on the floor because I didn't have like a surface. I was like, and it was just bad content, honestly. A lot of it was, me like trying to use sounds, and I knew what you were supposed to do, which was like sounds, trends, effects, filters. I knew like the tricks, but I don't like, I wasn't enough of a power user myself to like, fluently deliver native content, right? It was like, I'm addicted to Twitter, so I can like do a tweet about anything probably. But it was with TikTok, it was like it's like a sort of a caveman encountering, a PlayStation. I had no idea what I was doing, and to this day I'm still a little bit like, I swear I think my fingers are too big. I can never like adjust the clip times and stuff. It just like breaks the app.
Plus all the editing happens on your phone, right?
Yes, I do not. I hate that.
Oh
and God. But like when you're trying to like have captions that come in at specific timestamps, and anything of like, it gets very complicated. I was like, how do people do this? And I realized that like a video that you watch on TikTok that's like 10 seconds long, it's probably had like a day of like work put into it.
Oh my God, yeah.
And I think that's what really blew me away. It's like, this isn't a channel that we can just, bolt on to what we're doing without like really taking it very seriously. It's not a gimme. It's its own thing. It's very much its own. There's no way to like cheekily repurpose content from other channels. Like I'm very guilty of like on Facebook, I just put like, Instagram and Facebook, I kind of just like put the same content up sometimes. It's like, it's an image, I like it. Whereas like TikTok, you can't do that. You have to like take the time to like script what you're going to do, find like a good location, take the time, do it, edit it, get it approved. Like it's very different. And if you get it wrong, you get burned really easily. Like the comments we were getting on our early videos were savage, honestly.
Really?
Like the community were very, I don't use hostile, but like that, it's almost like they could sense blood. You know what I mean? Like, it was like, this is not good content. Like it's not what they wanted to see. It was people didn't feel like we were honestly engaging with them or creating content that was like I guess like good content ultimately. So like we tried lots of different approaches and lots of different like strategies as well. It's interesting because like as a financial service, like what can you bring to TikTok? And like an early bet we had was like around financial education. I was like, cool, we know that like learn on TikTok is a big thing. Personal finance TikTok, there's like billions of views on videos that are about like finance and budgeting and things like that. And so like we had some wins just doing very basic videos around how to do budgeting methods, like over the head, like over the shoulder shots of someone like my manager B doing like pie charts about various budgeting methods and things like that. And like it's really basic content, but it did really well. But then the next video would be like me, I don't know, waving a Monzo card around or something and like doing something stupid, and like everyone be like, fire your social media manager.
Seriously.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I found it hard sometimes because it was like,
yeah,
I just felt like I didn't feel like I was good at my job. I was like, this platform is not working for us, and like I'm failing to like get the views and positive engagement we want to see. So there was a lot of trial and error. You know, like we worked with agencies for a little bit. We tried, you know, doing other things. We eventually, a few months down the line, hired the content creator, our full-time content creator, and you know, she is able to dedicate a lot more time to it. And I like that investment has paid off so much. It's just by having a person who can, you know, take time to like make really high quality content has made a world of difference in terms of the output, but also the way it's received. Like the comments are a lot more kind now. People enjoy our content, and you know, we are able to produce like, you know, regularly high performing, engaging content, I would say.
How many do you do per week?
Probably like between 2 or 3.
Wow.
Maybe. There's quite a lot that go up, yeah. And a lot of that is just like always on. Like often it will be, you know, a trend or a song or something like that. But we try and like fold in a mix of like actual like relevant messaging as well that like we would want to use the channel for. Because like TikTok's interesting because like the brands that succeed, Duolingo, Ryanair, it's like they're not really like, Duolingo like isn't posting about its app. There's no like, oh, and if you use this feature in Duolingo, you can like do even better. They just post about their owl monster man. But like it works for them because it's like a pure brand play. Like same with Ryanair to some extent.
Yeah.
So you know, it's hard on TikTok to force a product message or even like talk very heavily about product stuff. There is some stuff that has worked really well for us though, like talking about savings challenges using Monzo, that kind of content. But for the most part, I think like the stuff that's working for us is like quite branded stuff. And we did a video where we had this like little stuffed toy, called little stuffed Monzo toy that we have. It's like an internal thing. We like give it to new parents at Monzo as a kind of like as part of like a new parent package we give them. And I managed to get my hands on like 5, and they're like super hard to come by at Monzo. Like I have to keep them like locked in this like cabinet because people will just they'll come and get me. And I was like, let's just put one of those in a video. And the specific idea we had was I was going to cut one open and put like a Monzo card inside it to make it look like we were using the Monzo card, using the plushie to buy things. And I was like, that's really clever.
Nice, yeah.
And our content creator Rosh was like, yeah, or I could just like hold a card behind it. I was like, okay, yeah, that's probably a better idea. Rather than doing this weird sort of surgery on a stuffed toy. And the video, I think the first video we did was just like paying for a Greggs with it. It's just like, you know, you tap in the plushie and you get a Greggs, and they got like 2 million views.
Wow. And
like up to that date, like videos we've done on TikTok had got like 100 or, you know, maybe a few thousand if we were lucky. And we were like, oh, okay,
interesting.
That's really like that kind of like opened our minds a little bit to like being really fun and playful and like weird and alternative can pay off. And then we started incorporating that a bit more. And I even the video was about something like, I don't know, a payment method or something, or a budgeting method or a spending challenge. Just have that little plushie in the background or something. It's like a hint of it, because people will like engage and comment just because they see that, they recognize that. It's become like a staple element of some of our content to some extent. So yeah, plushie is very much the hero of our TikTok. And I just find it really interesting how like people will latch onto that one thing, which is like, is never the thing you intended to start off with, but is like the thing you sort of found along the way that works for you. And yeah, it's people still like every comment is like, I want one, where can I get one?
Really?
And I think we're like forever just going to sort of, we like, the thing is that then inspired other content in like, we did an Instagram giveaway. We'd never done giveaways before. I think there was a question about this. We'd never done giveaways before because we didn't really have anything to give away. Like, what can you give away apart from just like money? And I'm somewhat skeptical of giveaways as being like a kind of just like a way to get low quality followers at cost. It's not the way to build an audience, I don't think. But I was like, well, I can probably give up one of these plushies. That's okay. And like that was like the giveaway post on Instagram was like our most liked post ever, like by some margin, like over 5,000 likes or something. So I was like, oh, okay, people really, really want one of these things. But yeah, even I don't have one. The ones I have sort of belong to the marketing team.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Honestly, we could do an entire like separate event on just TikTok, understanding that, because everyone's still really kind of figuring that out.
We're still figuring it out.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, well, we have some amazing questions here from people. I've just been seeing them come in. The first one, I saw Jonathan. I saw you were here. I don't know if you're still here, but I know you asked a really good question in the Slack group, and I was wondering if you would come. I don't know if Jonathan is here anymore, but he asked a very good question in the Slack group, and I was wondering if you wanted to turn on his video. I think he's gone now, so he's not here. Yeah, bad timing. But his question, which I thought was cool, although we've covered it a little bit, is the level of autonomy. What is the level of autonomy that you give people in your team? You've mentioned already kind of that you've got a team of 3 and you're focused mostly on content creation. But yeah, what is the level of autonomy, and who's reviewing? Does he review anything? Do you review anything? And do different people have a different kind of level of, I don't know, ability to touch on sensitive topics, financial topics, etc.? So yeah, what does that look like on your team?
Cool. Great question. So yeah, I said team of 3. I guess it's really a team of 4. Because my manager B, like she looks after all content, and she manages like me, social media manager, and Rosh, who's our social content creator. Then we have a social media designer as well. So it's kind of like a team of 4, and we all are very stuck in to everything we do. So like as part of that planning process, we all generate ideas together. So I guess there's a real sense of like shared ownership of the ideas from the moment they're generated. But then like each idea will get like an owner assigned to it. So like, oh, I might own this, I don't know, bank holiday meme we're posting or whatever. And it's like my responsibility then to kind of see it through and make sure that, like it is being, oh, it's great, it's being designed, that's great. The copy is signed off, that's great. And most of that sign off occurs within our own team. So that will be like, if B's doing something, I'll approve it, or vice versa. Or if, Rosh has written up some big TikTok script, we have a look at that. And so like we kind of like manage it within our own team for the most part, which is cool. Like that works really well for us because it means we can move very quickly. We have like a daily stand-up where we look at the calendar and go, cool, that is in progress, this is done. Oh, Richard, please hurry up and approve this. Why haven't you done it yet? So like we manage a lot of it internally, which is great. Obviously there is stuff that needs like external approval. That may be because of, it contains financial promotion material, in which case, we would work closely with our compliance team to make sure we have everything we need to get that signed off, or it is touching on some sort of product that we would want to talk to the product team about and make sure that they are happy with how we're talking about their product. But for the most part, we have like a high degree of autonomy, which I love. I think we're pretty privileged in the sense that we do not have like a process by which we need to run everything we post by another team. I think that would be a difficult environment to work in, especially for the more reactive content we do. So we do some content that is like, oh my God, have you seen this tweet? This is trending right now. We need to respond. Like, classic example I go to is the WhatsApp out. There was like a WhatsApp outage a year or 2 ago.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
At some point in the pandemic, there was a WhatsApp outage. And so like within about 50 minutes, we had a tweet out, like mocked up thing that was sending like a 1p message to someone on Monzo and using the like reference field to say, hey, what do you want for dinner? As a kind of like WhatsApp replacement, kind of joking use case for Monzo. And like we didn't have to go through like a lot of approval for that.
Yeah,
the approval there was more just like within our own team, sense checking, like, does this make sense? Is this funny? Is it like enough of like a witty thing to do? Are there any risks involved with this? And very much like owning the risk internally within the team. One thing we do have though is like a fleshed out like risk framework. So like things that we expect to be more risky, like we will like escalate and run by. And then we also have like a bit of a matrix for, if we see stuff is getting a bad reaction, when we take it down or not. Because like if something like isn't doing very well and is getting like bad reaction, take it down. Like
that's the point.
That's a no-brainer. But if something's doing like really well and is getting a little bit of like negative, like where does that go? So like we sort of fleshed out a like a matrix, literally like a grid of like kind of like ratios of like good and bad. And we use that also to like inform decisions. Because I think within about 50 minutes of posting something, you can tell if it's good or bad. And yeah, I think last thing I'd say is like 4 years of experience here and plus like years previous, I think we have a pretty good understanding of like what good looks like on social, but also like what risky and what like bad looks like. So we just try and apply that experience as well as like the people who are closest to those channels calling each other out and being like, nah, I don't think so. So it's mostly owned internally.
What would you mind sharing? What are some of those topics that are more risky? Like you mentioned financial promotions. So is there anything? Yeah. What are some of those?
Well, I mean, like we would never talk about I don't know, war or obviously we went quiet for a long time at the start of the month, like recently with the Ukraine. We wouldn't talk, we wouldn't know. There's like obviously unbrand safe topics like sex, drugs, etc.
Political
like,
topics and stuff.
But like I've often suggested like, getting a fine for your party, maybe you could like have a pot for that. No, let's not do that. Okay. Let's not get involved in politics. So like I think just having like clear barriers is to like whole domains you'll not venture into. But I think it gets it's more subjective when it's something like what's a good example? The Rebecca Vardy moment, if you remember that on Twitter. There was a thing where it was like what's her name, Colleen Rooney, and basically two like footballers' wives were arguing, and it was like trending on Twitter, like should we get involved or not? And it felt like it's everyone's talking about it, but it's also kind of like it's personal. It's like a personal thing, and it feels like maybe brands shouldn't be like capitalizing off like interpersonal drama that is like a little bit icky. So it's fine for like people to make jokes about that on their own channels, because it's fine. But when it's like a brand ostensibly for profit trying to like crowbar themselves into a situation that is like not morally unambiguous, I think it's you have to be much more careful. So those are kind of topics we probably stay away from.
It's super tricky, and on Twitter I see it all the time. People are debating whether a brand should have posted something or not. Like the biggest example was Women's Day, where obviously every brand had something to say, and then so everyone also had something to say about what that brand had to say, and it was just a never-ending debate. So it's a really tricky line to tread on, for sure. Shivani, I see that you have a few questions. I hope Shivani's still here. Would you mind turning on your microphone, and would you like to ask the question directly? I know you've got a few questions, so that way you can ask all the questions you want. I don't know, Shivani.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Sweet. Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I did have a bunch of questions. So I work at a new bank in India. It's called FI, and we are very inspired by the things that Monzo does, which is why, and I'm the social media manager for FI. So one of the questions that I had is, we also initially took the entire engagement first approach, where we started doing a lot of fun content like memes, engagement posts, giveaways. But we were also thinking that how do we strike a balance between talking about the product and feature and also creating a fun and engaging content-based community? Because we're a new brand, we're fairly new, it's just a year old, and we still have a lot of people who don't know much about our product and our features. So how do we manage that on social? That's one. The other part was, how do you use influencers, and what kind of success metrics do you attach to that?
Cool. Great questions, and great to meet you. I'll have a look at what FI are doing. I love sort of seeing what the fintechs around the world are up to. The influencer question I can answer very quickly, which is like we don't currently work with influencers, but it's something that we're very keen to explore soon. We know there's like a huge opportunity there. I think it's just a mix of finding the right, moment to do so, like what campaign, what product, etc. So I don't have a good answer for you, I'm afraid. But if we were to work with influencers, I would look to what can they achieve for us in terms of reach? Like, do they have a large audience that they can help us reach, or can they create content for us which we can use in our performance marketing? So like working with creative people to create content that you can then turn into like runners ads or something like that. Those are the two like main strategies I would think of working with the influencers. And there's probably like a mix of things in between. Again, I'm not an influencer marketing specialist, but I know the opportunity. The product features versus engagement one is a really interesting question. One thing I haven't really talked about is like the history of Monzo and like in terms of like community. So like Monzo like has always been built with like its community in mind. We've been very much like a sort of driven by what people tell us they want from their bank. You make Monzo was the phrase that we used in our marketing a few years ago. And I worked on like a forum and events where like we are very interested in what people have to say, and like use that feedback to make the product better, to help us sort of build a bank that makes money work for everyone. So in terms of like, I don't think there is like a trade-off between like doing the product sort of feature stuff and engagement when you think about it through the lens of community. Like, you're building things that people want or have been asking for or have feedback on, and incorporating that into like the things that you're talking about on social is a way of like bringing those two things together, I think. So like what do I mean by that? I think when we do a conversation starter that's like, if you could change one thing about Monzo, what would it be? Like, that invites like a lot of feedback, and it's up to me to like then pass that feedback in a way to product teams that they can do stuff with. Or if we know that a product launch is coming up, there's been a long-standing request from our community, like we see it in our forums, we see it in our replies. I'm thinking like dark mode especially was like a long-standing request from our community. When we come to like launch that feature, doing it in a way that isn't just like, hey, we built this thing because we think it's good, but like doing it in a way it's like, we did this because you asked us to. Like, you did this because like you wouldn't shut up about it in our replies. Using that as a kind of like marketing strategy, as sort of taking what the community is asking for and like sort of giving back to them. And we also like, we know that like Monzo users have a lot to say about notifications and things like that, or taking photos of our card when they go on holiday with them. So like our users also generate this huge amount of like user generated content, which we can then take and with their permission, of course, repackage as our own content for our own channels as well. So like a kind of like loop of us creating content, which then spurs our community to make content, which we then sort of show back to them as fresh content. So it becomes a sort of loop of sort of content and community. So I think it all comes back to community, honestly, building stuff that people want, but also engaging them to find out what else they want and like what is not working for them. And yeah, just closing that loop, I guess. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, super helpful. Just another quick one. What is your take on giveaways on social media? Because we've been using it as a tactic to, get that quick spurt in follower group. But in the long run, do you think it's a sustainable way of working, or how do you think it works?
Yeah, it's where people only really talk about it as like a kind of like growth tactic. And it's the hardest thing in the world, I think, is to grow grow a social account from zero today. Like, the best time to start a social account would be like 10 years ago, when there was less competition. Now there's so much noise. How on earth can you like convince, how on earth can you get heard in like this ocean of noise on social? And giveaways and stuff is where following us and encouraging other people to follow us is the incentive. That makes sense as a way of getting growth. But I remain skeptical of giveaways as like a long-term community building exercise, because who are those people that are following you? So they're not people who are interested in what you have to say. They're people who like want the thing, right? They want the cash, or they want the money, or they want the prize. So I just worry about the quality of follower you get, and I wonder if there are better ways of gaining exposure than just essentially paying for growth. Like, you might as well just like buy followers at that point, because that's kind of what you're doing. You're paying to get followers, essentially. I don't know what else, like things I don't know what else you can really do like to gain exposure on like a platform like something like LinkedIn, or not LinkedIn, Instagram, where there's so much like noise already, and like there's only so much, there's hashtags and stuff only take you so far. I guess you just have to make content that cuts through, or cross post to other channels, or get onto other channels on that platform that are really big. That's, I know, easier said than done, but I just worry about like what you're really doing when you're doing giveaways and like how meaningful it is.
Yeah,
But
and
it works for some people.
I was going to say, yeah, Cash App do this a lot, and it seems to they have done.
True.
They were doing giveaways every Friday or something, and they've gone
Yes.
crazy. So it's
Yeah.
interesting.
There's like brands like, I want to say like Boohoo and stuff in the UK. Like they do like basically weekly giveaways, and it's always like tens of thousands of pounds.
It's so
like,
much money.
How do you have the budget to like just like throw money away? Like you could like make so much great content with that money that would like to probably take you as far. So it kind of blows my mind. Maybe just because I've always operated like in a sort of minimal budget situation, but they don't even need, like, these are big brands. They don't need to like throw money away. But you know, that is their strategy. It works for them. Like they wouldn't do it if it wasn't doing something for them. So yeah, whatever works, I guess.
Yeah, of course. Blazej has an interesting question as well. Blazej, would you mind unmuting? And then you can ask your question directly to Richard.
Yeah, sure. So I have two questions. So first of all, I'm wondering, what's your approach to like maybe reusing content between accounts on Facebook and on Instagram, or for example, Twitter? So do you prefer to like use the same content across all the channels, or maybe you want to create well, content for particular channels, well, just piece by piece?
Cool, great question. This is like one of those like pieces of like received wisdom, right? So everyone's like, oh, you must create channel specific content. You should never post the same thing across multiple channels. And I do agree with that to some extent. I think you shouldn't be posting like something that's been sized for Twitter on Facebook, or, you know, I mean, like in terms of like pure like specifications of sizes and stuff, it makes sense to tailor your, like, yeah, a TikTok video has to be vertical, like really. So like at that level, I think it's true. But you know, I've been like a scrappy social media marketer for a long time. Like before we had the luxury of like a dedicated content creator, a dedicated designer, there's only so many hours in a day. And it's like, I can't create content. I have these channels to keep alive. I can't create the bespoke, the perfect content for each of these channels. But I have content that will like engage an audience on each of these channels. It'd be dumb just to like not reuse it for the sake of, oh, I think it's like bad practice, right? Mm-hmm. Like if we have like a beautiful, what I call framed tweets, you know, where you take a tweet and you put it on a background that works really well on Instagram, but also people on Facebook love it. That's not some horrible sin of marketing to reuse that content. I think that's really smart. That's really savvy. I mean, like, and so that was our approach for a long time. We would just like kind of cross-post content and, you know, to do what worked. We've slightly evolved that approach, and now we would do less kind of like pure cross-posting and more like repurposing. So like, you know, if we have like a blog post, we can turn that into a Instagram carousel and turn that into like a Twitter thread and turn it into a TikTok. I'd like use that as the basis of a script for TikTok. I think that's super smart. You get like 4 times the amount of output out of one piece of like content. That's the approach I kind of now recommend. I mean, like sometimes we're still scrappy, and sometimes we'll put something up on Instagram and I'll be like, yeah, put it on Facebook. They'll love it. And they do. And it's like, great, cool, we got it. So like, I think it's not a bad thing to do. And I think you can actually like, it's like a little shortcut you can get away with as well.
Yeah, sure. And my second question was about the difference in size of the accounts between LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram, because I've noticed that your account on LinkedIn is like twice as big as on Facebook.
Yep.
And even bigger, well, the difference is even bigger between Instagram and LinkedIn. So what's the reason behind that?
Great question. I wish I knew. I haven't done like a forensic follower audit. What I would say is like our LinkedIn's like the underdog channel. It really is. Like we really neglected LinkedIn until about a year ago, because I was like, it's just for like stuffy business people. But like most people have a LinkedIn account. Most consumers will have a LinkedIn account. So it's very much a consumer. There's consumers there as well. There's like actual real life people. A lot of them are mad, but it's an interesting channel. And you can get like really high reach on there. Like one thing we started doing is we started posting what we call like Monzo magic stuff. So just like the things that we do at Monzo that we think make working at Monzo special. That might be, oh, did you know that we have dedicated prayer rooms in the office, which like people can use for like their needs and stuff like that, or the parents' room, or hey, here's like a sign that we have in our toilets about, you know, where to go if you're struggling with mental health, or here is some sweets we bought in the office for Diwali and things like that. And like these kind of like really sort of, yeah, we were like, hey, did you know we have a whole Slack channel just about dogs at Monzo? Here are some of the dogs of Monzo, that kind of thing. And like each one of those would just get like hundreds of thousands of impressions. And the audience there, it's a weird one because like we're not really talking about Monzo the product, we're talking about Monzo the employer, right? Or the brand. It's employer branding, that's what it is. And so like who is that content relevant to? Well, it's not just like our addressable market, it's not just the UK bank account holding population, it's kind of like global. Like when we tweet about us introducing a sabbatical policy or a pregnancy loss policy, or you know, some like new change that we've made that we think is like is a good thing to do as an employer, that is kind of relevant to all employers. And like I see in the comments us like reaching business owners or employers across the world, like USA, like across Asia, Africa. Like it really has like a global appeal, that content, because it's not about the UK banking industry. It's kind of like it's universally relevant. And so I think us posting a lot of that content, a lot of it going very far, means that like we can attract followers on LinkedIn from like all over the place. Whereas like I don't think you're really going to follow us on Facebook unless like we're quite relevant to you, unless like you are based in the UK or have a Monzo account or interested in what we have to say. If you are, you know, a small business owner in I don't know, Cuba, you might not. Why would you follow us on Facebook? Was like because of like the stuff we put on LinkedIn, which is very, you know, universal about us as an employer. It kind of can apply to almost anyone. So yeah, that would be my like first guess analysis as to like why that is the way it is.
Leo has a good theory saying that he thinks it's likely down to their consistent naming as one of the top companies to work for in the UK.
Oh, that probably helps.
That probably helps. We have time for one more question, and Ananjan has a question here about community. Would you mind unmuting and just saying your question directly to Richard? I don't know if Ananjan is here. Right, he is here, or she, I don't know. Ananjan?
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello.
Hi, Richard. I just wanted to know what are the different types of community events that Monzo conducts, and are these, the community events also amplified on social media?
Cool. So the question is, what community events do we run?
Yeah, and are they? Do you promote them on social media? Yeah, go on. Sorry.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, we used to do a lot more sort of in-person events. Definitely like at the start of Monzo, there was like a real thing where like the first 100 people that got their Monzo cards had to come to the office and physically get their Monzo card. And that was a very deliberate kind of like, well, yeah, it meant we didn't have to send them out, but it also meant that we got to meet the community, talk to them, find out their needs, and like I said earlier, build a bank that kind of met their needs, like find out what's not working for them. And we kind of kept that up as we grew in the kind of like London, I guess, like tech scene. There was a lot of like hackathons and things like that, engaging that sort of tech crowd. Fintech was like a very new thing in London. It was, we were sort of part of that. And like what that kind of evolved into was what we called like open offices. We would have like a monthly event where we invited all our community, like whoever wanted to come, to a free event in our office where some person from some team at Monzo would be giving a talk. That might be a data person, could be legal, could be marketing even, in a very kind of like, come drop by, hear from us, ask your questions, that kind of vibe. We did that for a while. We scaled that back, obviously for the pandemic. We haven't sort of ramped that up again just yet. But we also ran some like quite like large one-off events. We had one called Investival that was for our crowdfunding investors, of which we have I think about 30,000. We had one called the Future of Monzo, which was like kind of forward-looking. Where could we possibly go in the future? And these were like full-day big events where we gave a lot of talks and things like that. And for those big ones, yeah, we did like capture content on the day. We had like videographers and things, and we would take the content chop it up and put it on like YouTube and stuff like that. Try and just like get a bit more life out of it by sharing it on social. But we haven't really sort of done much in the way of, you know, audio spaces. I know like Clubhouse isn't really a thing anymore, but like Twitter Live, Twitter Spaces, or anything like that. It's not something that we've really explored, honestly. I think it has potential. I know our US team, we're launching in the US, and we are sort of in the early growth stage there. They're very much interested in like looking at, you know, events and social as a way of like, you know, virtually holding events and things like that. So I'd expect to see more from them in that regard as we, you know, look at other areas.
Nice. So more events coming up. That's what you were saying.
Yeah, or like,
hopefully.
Like I think events it's sort of, it has a different meaning. It has a different, like, it means something else. It doesn't, like, I don't think we're quite yet back to the world where we can do like a monthly open office event where we get like 300 people in a room. I don't think that's wise at the moment.
Yeah. Fair enough. Great. Well, we've come to the end of our event. Thank you so much, Richard, once again for coming on. Where can people find you and follow you online if they want to learn more about your insights and thoughts on social media?
Yeah, so you can follow me on LinkedIn, just Richard Cook, Monzo, or otherwise Cookiework on Twitter. I should change it. I should come up with the more professional.
I love it.
Professional display name. Okay. No, thank you for having me. And yeah, I love talking about this stuff. I could talk for hours. So thanks for cutting me off after 1 hour.
Well, thank you also to everyone who came live. I know the holidays are coming here soon in the west side of the world. So I appreciate everyone for coming in. And thanks again, Richard, for answering all our questions patiently and going into so much detail. We'll continue to follow Monzo on social media, and and hopefully you as well, Richard. And we'll send the recording to everyone so you can look through it again if you want to go over it if you've forgotten something. But yeah, thanks everyone, and have a good evening.
Have a good one. Bye.
Bye-bye.